let's get started. You ready? Let's do it.
Yeah, let's go. Hmm.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jalen Williams. My pronouns are he, him. Um, I am a black male in the Los Angeles dance scene. When I think like generation wise, I'm probably the new generation, I guess. I don't know what generation you would call this. I grew up in Los Angeles, Mid City, California, if you're familiar with the area. Went to Fairfax High School for a bit. And then, yeah, went to school at the LA Film School, got a job working in video game production, um, led to a life in tech and video games, and, eventually leading me to find the dance scene. And that's where this all starts.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can just tell you,
I'm gonna go
I
straight to
found
the.
dancing. Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, go straight for it.
Oh
Good.
yeah, no, I found dancing in a crazy way, I would say. It was my cousin's birthday party, and I got a little tipsy, as you do at a birthday party, right? And I was dancing with a lovely lady, and we were having a great time. And we exchanged information at the end of the night, and she goes, "Oh, you're a wonderful dancer. You should come with me to this dance class sometime." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Like, let's figure this out. Yeah, absolutely. I'll go to this dance class with you." Um, we exchanged all the info. It's on a Sunday night. It's at this bar that I hadn't heard of at the time called Joe's Great American Bar and Grill. Mind you, this was the whitest bar I'd ever been to. I was probably one of two black people in this whole establishment. Don't get me wrong, they were relatively nice. I didn't have any problems with anybody or anything like that. Like, everybody was cool. It was just off putting, as you know, walking into a room like that. But, I wanted to go on a date with this lady, and that's where I was mistaken. I very quickly found out this was not a date. This person was putting on a blues lesson at said bar, and I was invited to come out to the class and dance. So I did. I was already there. I had a drink in my hand. I did their blues class right then and there, and it was a lot of fun. We were like rotating between people. They had a small dance floor, but a dance floor nonetheless. So it was a really good time. And then I believe it was a blues night that night. So we ended up dancing to some of the live music that they had going on afterwards. And because I had a good time, I was like, sure, I'm not doing anything else on Sunday night. I'll go back to that. And it started to become a reoccurring thing. And I went pretty much nonstop for a few months at a time or so. I guess you can say I caught the dance bug. I was loving it. And then I slowly started hearing about more and more dance events going on, and there was more blues stuff going on. There was a monthly called Do Something Blue at the time, and it was run by Tracy, who's a good friend. Uh, and I went there for the very first time, and I didn't know what to expect. It was the first time like seeking out a dance thing that was not at a bar or club or something of that nature. So I walked in and was pleasantly surprised. I do realize walking in there aren't that many black people in this scene. Um, but the people who were there were passionate and friendly, and it still made it a welcoming space for me to come in and just, be a part of the group and learn from them as well. And so I did. I started attending the local monthly, and then there was another monthly, Blues Liberation Front, and I would attend that monthly as well once I found out about it. They were happening on different weekends. They were really good about scheduling that type of stuff. So it felt like for a while, sometimes you'd line up and you'd have like maybe three events back to back to back in a weekend. And it'd be like a special, like, this is a little LA weekender because you got a Friday, Saturday, and maybe a Sunday during the day or something, like, or a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I became really ingrained in the community during that time because I couldn't really afford to do a lot of the dancing that was going on. So in order to kind of get in, I would volunteer. And that would be my way of like getting to be a part of the scene without being able to afford it, because there is a cost to get into these events and whatnot. It's not a free thing. They need to, make money to keep it up and going. And I understand that. Um, yeah. And in doing so, I made good friends with a lot of the current, at that time, current leaders and people in the scene, the instructors, the organizers, and um, that really helped me blossom. I started to dance even more. And more specifically, I found Lindy Groove, which was our weekly, and still going on, weekly Lindy Hop dance in Pasadena, uh, at the Masonic Temple, which is a crazy place to have a dance, if you ask me. But I mean, it's big. The people were cool. No get out situation. We were good. We were good. It was all right. Um, yeah. So I would go there every Thursday. And the thing that I really enjoyed about going to Lindy Groove was that, one, I found Lindy Hop. And when I saw Lindy Hop online, I looked at like old Whitey's Hell's a Poppin' Lindy Hopper stuff. And I thought that looked like a lot of fun. And I was like, wow, that looks crazy. I would love to learn something like that. As I got more ingrained into it, I learned that it was very technical in a way that my brain was like, okay, this is some fun. But for me, it really depends on my partner. I'm a bigger human, so I really love like full physical swing out. Like that was the type of vibe. There's only a couple people who I really got that with, and I love dancing with them for that very reason, because it was just, that's where the fun is for me. Um, Other than that, I found myself more diving more into the blues scene. So I spent more time in the blues scene, especially at Lindy Groove, because with volunteering there, they would have blues lessons, and the blues lessons didn't have the same amount of people attending them that you would the Lindy Hop lesson. It was very clear in the direction of the place that, like, hey, Lindy Hop is like the primary dance, and then we got blues on the side. And we were very much thankful for having the blues on the side. So it wasn't like that's bad blood or anything there. It just didn't, people didn't gravitate to it as much as they did Lindy Hop. Uh, I became a regular in those classes there, and that is Jeff Meyer and Sarah LePan. And I will credit them as being my first true blues instructors and teaching me so much that I would have like never known before, and just being wonderful humans. And it was such a good time to be ingrained in the dance scene, because this was like mid to late 2018 going into 2019. And as I continued to dance in 2018 going into 2019, I found other dancing as well. There was fusion dancing that was going on out here. I even tried some bachata and some salsa and even a little West Coast swing, just to, dip my toes in all those things. But blues was always the home. That was always like, oh, I felt really comfortable with this. I want to go back to it. And I was learning a lot. Being one of the fewer attendees in that class, I felt like I had a real strategic advantage in regards to having one-on-one access with teachers who knew so much that I could gain from, that it just helped my growth in the dance, rise exponentially in a way that wouldn't have happened if you don't have that type of access. So I was really fortunate to be in that situation, to have that type of access and become friends with them, and like be around these wonderful humans. Yeah. And
Did you ask to be mentored to become a teacher, or did they approach you? Like,
sorry, say that one more time.
did you initiate, like, I want to become a teacher, or did they initiate
Mm,
asking you? That's what I'm curious about.
okay. So going into that, once I had been taking the lessons there for quite some time, I moved into um, I started to travel. I think that's the next important step for me. The traveling is where that all kind of starts. So in April of 2019, I was looking for a brand new job, and I was on the edge of like finding a new job. And I had been told by all my friends in the LA scene, like, hey, you should go to this event called Blues Shout. That was the event that was being hyped up to me as like the premier blues event. Gotta go do this thing. So I was like, okay, cool. Mind you, I had never left California by myself as an adult at that point in time, let alone set up a trip to somewhere to go do like a dance event at the thing. So I saved up the funds for it. I bought my flight. I was able to go. And the blues scene, the key thing about um, travel is that they have housing offered with a lot of the events that happen. And that makes it easier for someone like, especially me at the time, who wouldn't have been able to afford to go otherwise. I was able to stay with a local, and we hung out throughout that weekend, and it was great. I've made friends all over the place because of this. And yeah, so I had a job interview for the place that I was interviewing at, my new job, and I was super excited about it. It was a big jump for me. If I got the job, I was going to be making $8 more an hour. So that was a huge jump. And I said, wow, I got to get this thing. So they said, hey, Jalen, we're going to have the interview on Monday. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm reaching out through a recruiter. Monday comes around, they have to reschedule. They say, hey, we're going to have the interview on Tuesday. And I'm like, okay, that's cool too. And I'm like reaching through the recruiter, and then they cancel Tuesday again. And I'm like, uh-oh, I don't know what's going on. This isn't looking good. So they say, hey, no, we can actually do it on Wednesday. And I'm telling the recruiter, like, hey, I leave on Thursday. So if something happens on Wednesday, I won't be able to have this until next week because I'm going to be gone on vacation. And he was like, no, they said for sure it's going to be Wednesday. So I said, okay. So Wednesday, I go up there, I have my interview, and I feel pretty good about it. And I was like, this feels good, like it could be a good fit, but you don't know. And they told me I would know by the end of the week whether I got the position or not. So I said, okay, cool. So thank them for their time, go on about my day, get everything ready for my flight. I fly over on Thursday because my mindset is if I'm going to this event, Blue Shout, I'm not missing a thing. Okay, so I'm going Thursday even for the pre-party. And I went for the pre-party, and I had a great time. And I ended up dancing with a lot of people. Mind you, I don't know anyone, right? So like I can tell that some of these people are here for the blues event, but this is my first time ever coming out to a blues dance. And while I have been taught a lot of stuff in the LA scene, like I don't really know what translates just yet, and still just getting confident, getting out there and dancing with people. But I had a lovely time. That Thursday, I had a wonderful time, and then that led into Friday. Friday during the day, I just kind of hung around the house and watched some anime, things like that. And then, it started getting later. I'm getting ready for the dance, and I realized, hey, I'm supposed to be getting a phone call about my job. And I'm sitting here and I'm waiting and I'm looking at the time and I'm like, it's already like 5 o'clock. What's happening here? I at this point, okay, nothing. I see it hits like 6:30, and I'm like, oh, I guess this just means I didn't get the position. Another 10, 15 minutes go by. I get a phone call. It's from a number I didn't even recognize, but something told me to pick up the phone. So I picked it up, and it was the recruiter. And the recruiter's like, I have excellent news for you. He's so excited. And he's like, he tells me that I got the job. So at that point, my whole weekend is set. I really don't care about any of the thing dance wise. Like I'm on a high that you can't compete with because I know when I go back, I have a new job. That means I'm going to be making more money. Like so much things are going to get better now. Yeah, and that was my mindset for the weekend. So the funny thing is I realized they didn't call late. I was in Chicago and there's a time difference. So it was only like 3:40 or so when they called me, and it was like, that makes more sense. But yes, so then I went and I danced this weekend. And one of the big things that have been talked about from friends in LA, they were like, hey, if you go, do the competition. I was like, I don't really want to do a competition. I'm not a competitive dancer. Like, that's not why I'm in it. I'm in it just for the fun and to dance with people. But, so much had happened about that. It was like, okay, fine. I'll look into it. And they're like, it's only $5. So sure, sign me up for the competition then. So I ended up doing the competition, and I'm taking classes the whole weekend. So I'm in class and I'm just like having a wonderful time. a lot of the class felt like PE to me, and I love PE. So I was like, one of the class, I'm like backpedaling and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm just backpedaling. So I was having a great time. Um, Saturday night, they have the newcomer comp because that's what I signed up for because I was a newcomer. Uh, that is, as a lead, you get to dance with a professional follow. And as a follow, you get to dance with a professional lead. And they have two winners, a lead winner and a follow winner. And I think that's such a cool way to introduce new people to the scene in like a competitive but fun and safe environment. And I competed that weekend and I ended up winning the newcomer competition as a lead. And that kind of set me on my dance journey in the greater national, US. Literally a week or so after Blue Shout had happened, I had got reached out to by Ruth Evelyn, and she was like, "Hey, like I was really impressed with the studentship in class, and we have this opportunity that just kind of opened up if you want to take a look at it." And I was like, what is this thing that she sent me? And it was called the Blues Experiment. And I was like, I don't know what this is. And I go to this website, I follow the link, and it's this crazy, massive, essentially mansion. I don't know how else to put it. There's like 30 bedrooms in the thing. It's a mansion on the beach in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. My first thought is this Get Out? I don't actually know because, mind you, I don't really know anyone in this thing. And this person's telling me, "Hey, come to this," and I'm like, I don't know. I had a good time. I liked the classes. This was great. What's happening here? So we're gonna figure it out. Uh, the first hiccup with that was it was a very expensive endeavor, and I didn't have the money for it. I reached out to all the closest people to me who might have the money for it. And imagine asking your grandma, "Can I have $2,000 for blues dancing?" Yeah, yeah, that's a no. Because why do you need $2,000 for blues dancing? Especially when they tell you, "Hey, you're going to get this money back. You're going to get reimbursed." So it felt off. That was You're not sure. But it ended up working out. They ended up putting up all the money for me up front and they sponsored me to go. I felt that was a very special thing to happen. And I'm honestly so happy that it did because it kind of opened my eyes to what possibilities are out there in the greater dance scene in a way that I don't think I've ever would have seen before. Also just brought me in and made me a lot closer with a lot of the folks in the scene altogether. So yeah, I ended up going to the Blues Experiment. And the funny thing was, the week that I was leaving my old job, I left that Friday. That Sunday, I flew out to the Blues Experiment. That next Sunday, I flew back home. And then that Monday, I started my new job. So, like, everything just lined up perfectly. Because I wasn't even sure if I'd be able to go to the experiment if it didn't land on that week that I was going to be off in between my old job and my new job. So it just felt like a sign. Felt like, yeah, this is definitely a go. You do the thing, and I did, and I had a really good experience. A little overwhelming being that new in an environment like that, but you try and pick up what you can, and like I made a lot of friends, and like I said, an experience that you can't really replicate. It's something that you have to do. You have to, like, if you're in the scene and you have it available to you, please take it because it is going to change and it's going to be great. So yeah, I went to
Yeah.
the experiment, and then from there, that led to me traveling to more dance events around the U.S. Um, I got sponsored to go to Washington, D.C. for Take My Hand Slow Drag. That was James Spiller. Shout out James Spiller, one of my homies. Uh, yeah. And he brought me out to be myself, which I think was one of the coolest things that someone could do for you, right? Like, there were no expectations besides just having me there because people like to be in the presence of me as being in the presence of others. So yeah, that was lovely. I'm so glad that I got to do that. I also learned a lot there too. every time that I was going to each of these events, I was taking classes. And I was still hitting up my local weekly when I would come back and just trying to improve on some of the stuff that I had learned in these other places too. So I'm just combining the knowledge that I'm gaining from home and the knowledge that I'm gaining from the national scene. So I'm just getting like a knowledge sandwich, and I was gobbling it up. uh, yeah. So,
Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah. No, that was great. So you mentioned PE, so I want to do this one real quick.
mhm.
When you were like growing up, and I guess even now, have you experienced athleticism emphasized as a practice or value, or have it projected onto you?
Mm. I'm kind of fat now, so I don't know that it's being projected on me per se, but I definitely projected on myself. And part of the reason that I've like recently stepped back from the dance scene because I can't interact with it physically in the way that I would want to. Um, and I would like to get to a better spot before you start to like reappear in what's going on. So yeah, it hasn't been pushed on me, but I have seen that it is a thing that gets pushed. I think within reason. I feel pretty good about this when I've seen in the scene. I think when it comes to classes and things like that too, this is where levels will come into play. Like, okay, I see what people are capable of, what they have access to, and then you can change up. All right, I think these people have the ability to do more and learn more here. So let's give them that access and that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And growing up, like when you were in school, did like people be like, "Oh, you're, obviously you play sports, obviously you play
Hmm.
basketball, etc." Like, did you like actively play on any teams or, um,
Yeah, my dad is a coach. So
oh,
I grew up around sports my whole life. Like I lived at the park on the weekends and things like that. That was very normal to be up at like 8 a.m. at a Saturday. And I was the one running the clock, doing the scoreboard and whatnot. So I was very involved in the park life and outside play, basketball, football. I played a little bit when I went to high school, but a lot of it kind of shut down around that time too. Just had a lot of stuff going on in life at that point. Yeah.
gotcha.
Mhm.
And do you feel like any of that actually, I think it's really cool you said it reminds you of PE and you like PE. So like did you feel
Mhm.
like like you brought some of those values from being around your dad coaching or from when you were on teams into how you approach maybe not like social dancing but how you approach learning, you
Oh
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, even when I started teaching, that's why I feel like teaching became so natural for me. I've been around this my whole life. This is not something, it's something I've just experienced. My only worry about teaching for me was just I have not been around dancing my whole life. I know how to get people to do the things that I'm asking them to do because I've been around that. But when I'm not 100% in the craft myself, and then a teacher to me should be able to lead by example, and I didn't always feel that I could lead by example in class, but I knew I had the theory behind how you do the things. So on one end I felt very comfortable, and on the other I was like, let's stick to the basics for these class, or give them the cool rundown, stuff like that. But when you start getting into all the idioms and whatnot, it's that's where it can break down for me. So
Gosh, yeah, that makes
yeah.
sense. Like where you have a, a lifetime of like this is how we get people but now applying it to specifically dancers, especially
Exactly.
social dancers who may have not this is their first time doing any kind of
Yep.
movement maybe. Yeah, and then I guess yeah, just to kind of tie this one up is
Hmm.
so once you were traveling and you got to go experiment, you got to go national, and it was improving, your own vocabulary,
Hmm.
skills. Did you locally did you initiate teaching, or did they ask you like, hey, do you want to learn how to teach?
So it's funny because they had actually asked me if I would cover a class for them, and this is after had to be like probably March of 2019 or so. They were like, "Hey, we're gonna be on vacation for like a week or something, and we didn't want to cancel the class, and we think you're like at the level where you could teach the lesson that we would have for that weekend." And I was like, or for that Thursday, and so the message had already been sent. I had replied it was going to happen, and then boom, the pandemic hit. Like it was literally like that. I did not teach that class because at that point everyone had just been made to stay at home.
Okay, so this was so you didn't get to really teach before lockdown, and it was
No.
when we came back that you were okay.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't teach before the lockdown like at all. And I would help with things, right? Like, but that's not necessarily teaching. And I'd give advice because at that point I had been around. So, if there's a teacher up in the middle of the class and they have an example, oh, I need a taller lead or something, and I can step up for that example. And then like, hey, and give my experience. This is what I've felt when I've danced with another follow who's of similar or shorter height, that type of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, like yeah, this is the interesting thing about the lockdown is like trying to place things like
Mm-hmm.
what happened when.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, because then a lot of things like Blue Shot didn't come back.
Yep.
So it's a slightly different ball game now.
Yeah.
Um okay, and then you said that you didn't really grow up dancing, I'm assuming, or like social dancing. Did
No.
you did you dance around like with your family members at like
I
cookouts?
grew up thinking I had two left feet. So I didn't dance at all really growing up. Maybe a little like shimmy or something like that, but I didn't really dance. I wasn't the dancer like that.
That's like fascinating because
Yeah.
yeah. So it was really just you happened to be at the right place, right time.
That was it. Right place, right time. Someone opened my eyes to this, movement that I didn't really know I loved until I did.
Yeah. And then so music wise, did you grow up hearing blues music at all or was
No.
it kind no?
My mom played rap music. My dad played rap music as well. I grew up listening to a lot of rap and hip hop and neo soul and soul, but not necessarily blues. Maybe some James Brown, but I don't even know if you consider that blues per se. That's just James Brown. So that's that's what I would listen to. I listen to all types of stuff like that. And then the stuff that'd be on the radio. You hear that little 94.7 the way. That's for you LA people. Yeah.
Um okay. So I don't know. Okay, so I have two things that are more like culturally.
Hmm.
So we have you can tell me if you want to talk about the scene from Sinners or Sinners in general and how
Hmm.
it's blues.
Hmm.
And then I don't know if you have any opinion about a year ago how the Summer Olympics had 2024 had
Break
breakdancing.
dancing. Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. I don't really
So
have a strong opinion about that, but I'll touch on it. The
yeah,
scene from Sinners,
yeah.
man, that so I saw that movie the first day it came out. I didn't know it was gonna be that good. I was just like, oh, this movie looks cool. It's Michael B. Jordan. I like Michael B. Jordan. I'm gonna go check this out. It was a Friday. We had the day off from work for whatever reason. So I went to an early show. I was at like a 12:30 show or something. I was in there with my little snack, eating up with probably some wings or something. So eating some wings, and then that scene came on and it hit me right here. It was one of those things that I was like, wow, I didn't know, like you forget music can be that captivating, that emotional, that raw. Like it was one of those for me. And I knew when that had happened that movie was going to be special, and I'm glad that it caught on and got as good as it did, and people really went out to go see it because it was a great film overall. But yeah, that was a touching, very touching scene for me.
Yeah, and you said you went to film school, but it was more for video games, right?
Yeah,
But
I went to film school by name, but I was actually just taking video game courses there.
so I guess I was just curious, like, if you had any thought of like more on that design stuff, like anything about the artistic way, like, from a more technical, or is it just that you enjoyed it as a
I liked it overall. I don't have an artistic reason for it. I was vibing with it, and the fact that they went through like all the different time eras and whatnot, like I liked it.
nice?
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, no, I don't think they didn't really advertise that movie as about dance. They said obviously it's a period piece, but like
Yep.
I think it caught all of a blues dancers were like, "What?"
Yeah,
Like,
and I love that it just blew up, and everyone was like, "You got to go see Sinners," and I'm like, "Yes, you do. Please go see it."
yeah. Okay, and then any thoughts about the summer 2024 Olympics on breakdancing?
The 2024 Olympics of breakdancing. I just think it's hard to judge something like that. And I think that's where a lot of it gets weird because unless the criteria is something that I think the like scene that has grown breakdancing, so whatever the current breakdancers use in their own competition setting, because most dances in our vernacular, most black dances, right, have some sort of competition. Um, Come to an agreed upon criteria for that, that is probably what you should use at a grander scale if you're trying to adopt this to be a global competition.
Yeah.
And it felt
And that
like that
reminds
wasn't what happened, right? And then there was a lot of talk about the lady from Australia and the dance that she did. And I understand that the kangaroo influence was just like a part of the dance, and it wasn't even the whole thing. But that's the part that catches fire, right? That's the part that goes global, that goes viral. That's what people see when they think of Olympic breakdancing, and they won't get to see the other kick-ass breakdancers who were going crazy with like even more skill. Not to call them skillless or anything like that, but just like of the same or even better skill, and they were going wild. And you don't really get to see any of that.
right, it was centering the outlier maybe and
Yeah,
not the
exactly.
yeah. And that by saying competition, it reminded me you said I'm not really a competitor, so but you did win the newcomer.
Hmm.
And then I think you've competed since, like during that year, and then maybe you've competed since post lockdown. I'm not sure. Did it kind
I
of change
did
your
some competition at Blues Muse a few years ago when I was there. I made finals, but I didn't win, nor did I place. But I did make it to the finals, so that was nice. And then I don't think I've really competed other than that. I did compete in a fusion event. That was for Champagne and
sunshine?
Sunshine when it was up in Oakland, or the Bay. I forget where. Oakland, the Bay, somewhere
Some
up there, somewhere in
somewhere around,
NorCal.
yeah, it was West Coast.
Yep, exactly. NorCal,
Yeah.
SoCal. We don't really know. We SoCal, baby. SoCal for life.
So you first you're like, I wasn't planning on competing. Okay, I guess it's $5, whatever.
Mhm.
So did anything like did is there any factor to like choice to continue to compete, or any kind of like just like how it makes you feel, or just you like the element of it, or uh,
Ooh. Do you mean just overall in
yeah.
competition? Yeah.
Yeah, like because
Okay.
now you continue to do it. Like you never thought you would, I'm guessing, and
Yeah.
now you've done it a couple times, and you choose to do it when you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, that's a good question. I think it hit a competitive gene inside of me that has always kind of been there. But I didn't think that I would get to that point with dance, right? Like because I played a lot of sports, I love the competitiveness of basketball. I love the competitiveness of football. Like that's part of what kept me going. I like games. I like playing games, but I also like playing to win. I don't really play to lose when I'm playing because that's not as fun to me. Um, and putting myself out there for some of the events, it really just kept coming with a lot of encouragement from the people around me who were in the scene. But then once I had like placed, right, winning a newcomer event, you start to think, okay, maybe I can do this and go out and have fun. And at the time, there were even more newcomer events that were still, or newcomer competitions that were still around. Like I'm pretty sure I competed at Blues Muse that year in their newcomer thing. It was like you had to be dancing under a certain amount of time, and I was still in that time frame. Like I was still a new dancer. I was advancing rapidly when I was a new dancer. Um, yeah, and then we also had Signifyin Blues in 2018, and I completely forgot because I skipped over this, but that technically was my first ever blues dance event, like a big blues event. Luckily, it was local. Uh, I didn't really get to take any of the classes because I was volunteering a lot for that, but I met a lot of people because of that volunteering. Being I was like the front desk helper, so everyone kind of interacted with me as long as I was on shift while they were coming in. And I got to meet a lot of people because of that, and I got to dance for a bit. And they even had their own like competition thing that they were like, hey, sign up for this. I was like, you know, but I did it. And I did it and I made it to the finals and it was great. I think I got like second place in that thing. But that was great. I had a wonderful time. It was the first big event I had gone to. And then I was like, okay, let's try out Shout. And then that's where, you know, went to Shout and come back from there.
It was very like just serendipitous timing that the first Signifyin Blues happened to be,
Yep.
the same year you started dancing,
Yep.
and we gotta do it. We gotta do it
Yes, we
twice.
did.
um.
Yes, we did.
All right, so let's get into some more of the nitty gritty here.
Hmm.
Cultural like legacy of Black Americans
Hmm.
creating blues.
Hmm.
Have you felt that you've experienced any expectations of what the blues standards should be and how to behave in the like at the blues dances that uphold or undermine Black American cultural standards?
Ooh. I think that anyone who says otherwise in any scene that is not a predominantly person of color scene is kind of fooling themselves. I think it is a thing that is just kind of the product of the environment of the scene. And when you have so many people who aren't a part of the culture that the scene was created from, it leads to a lot of differences up top in how things should be, what things get taught, and how people feel on things. Me personally, you notice things when you go into places. Um, I wouldn't say that I was hit with immediate expectations, but there was a feeling of, you know, golden goosery, I guess, if you want to say that, of me for the LA scene because I was traveling to all of these national events. But at the same time, I felt like I was missing out because a lot of the friends and teachers and people that I, you know, became close with all slowly gravitated away from the dance scene um, after the pandemic. And that's when I was really grabbing my roots in. Uh, and for me, it meant coming back to Lindy Groove um, and teaching class for pretty much every week for about a year, over a year. And it took a lot out of me.
Yeah.
You know, and there weren't that many leads at the time. We would rotate who we could, you know, like Jenny was wonderful. She would come in and be the lead. Marley would do the same thing and Danita too. But like we always needed two of us here. Jenny lives very far away, so it wasn't always easy. And she did come to Lindy Groove a lot, but like that was still a challenge for her. Danita doesn't have a vehicle, so it was just harder for her to get around in general. And it's just like managing all of that on top of managing everyday life and you know a job and dating and all this other stuff. It just it it started to feel like a second job. And at first it didn't, which is why I continued with it for so long because I was just doing it because I was in it for the fun of it. Um, and once the work became like very real, I had to take a step back. And that was something that I discussed with my therapist at the time. I was like, hey, if I ever get to a point where, you know, I don't want to do this, she's like, you know, think about it. And then if you need to take a step back, take a step back. And that's what I ended up doing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, go for it.
Speaking to the golden goosery, like for
Yeah.
that tokenization,
Yeah.
experiencing tokenization, it's, in the context of the blues scene. Um, you want to expand on that? Like, I don't know if it's only local, if you also experienced it national or
Hmm. I can't say that I experienced it nationally, but I also spent a lot of time around the other black folks in the scene nationally. So I could have avoided a lot of that because I was spending time with them. Also, I'm not the best in the national scene. So, you know, like that, no one's really looking at me like that, which is great. I don't have to worry about that at all. They're looking at them like that. And I do think at their level, absolutely. And like some of that is to be expected, right? When you have a name like Damon Stone who rings through all the land, you know, some of that is not all of it's going to be everyone that loves you. And I understand that. But like when I talk to him and when I interact with him, I know he's a wonderful human. I know he's been giving back to these things. And I'm like, I can make my own opinion about this person, you know, like that's where that comes in. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so like I'm not trying, yeah. So I'm gonna
You're good.
then focus local.
Yep.
I don't think, I wouldn't say it's probably not malicious, but do
Hmm.
you feel like there was an over like emphasis on like, oh, Jalen is black and he wants to teach and he wants to DJ. We need him. Like, like
I can't say that that was the case for me.
okay.
I think that maybe I was fortunate in that right because what happened for me, even with the DJing, right? They just needed DJs. They were just like, it felt desperate. You know, at that time, it was like, hey, we really need anybody. And I'm just like, I don't DJ. I barely make playlists myself. Like before I started DJing, I didn't have no playlists. I just played music occasionally. I listened to music passively. I didn't start actively listening to music until I was more in the dance scene with that. And for me, it didn't feel like they were asking me to DJ because I was black, but mainly because I was their friend and I was always there. So it was just like, okay. And I told them, if you want me to DJ, you got to give me the right to play whatever the fuck I want. Sorry, man, curse because I didn't even think about
Yes,
it.
you
Okay, cool.
can.
Um, yeah, so that's what I ended up doing, and I started playing whatever I wanted, and I was just like, you know, I'm sprinkling blues. I'd like to make sure blues is in there. But the fun for me was always I liked the idea of a club like environment, um, but in a partner dance way. And I felt like that would be such a fun thing to have. And I would play more hip hop, more R&B, more you know, just things that hadn't been played, alternative things that would pop up for me. Even just Bruno Mars or Michael Jackson, like throw some oldie hits in there. Like, you know, because a lot of what I would hear, I felt like at the our blues stuff, it can be samey. You know, we've heard this before. This is kind of our go-to if we do this. Or you're playing a lot of hits, but they're not like hits that everyone knows, right? So then people are like, I don't really know what's going on. I'll make it happen because this is still cool and I'm rocking with it. But give the people something that they all kind of know, and then that's something that they can dance to, and then you can segue into some of the other stuff. That's how I see it, at least from like a DJ perspective. Excuse me. But yeah, I didn't feel that like tokenism specifically in regards to DJing. When it came to teaching, that was more of a my teachers have left and I knew they were driving a very long way, right? They're driving like an hour plus to get here every Thursday and they just had a baby. It just wasn't going to happen anymore. And then my other partner in crime in the scene also took a step back. He already wasn't really at Lindy Groove like that to begin with. And then, you know, the group of people we have, like we'd rotate who would be there. It wouldn't be at, not everyone would show up all the time now. And it just, I don't know, it became a lot. It became a lot. And it was just like, all right, I gotta take a step back from this and just see what's best for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I've actually wondered because that's what I wonder. I'm like, did you leave because you were feeling tokenized, or did you just leave because it was like it's a lot? Like it's just like a
Yeah.
lot. Like,
It was a lot.
um,
I didn't leave because of tokenizedism or anything like that. I didn't feel like you guys were like it was just me being put up on a black pedestal or anything like that. Like some of that would be jokingly, and I don't mind that at all. That's fine. But was it actually pushing me up as a black human that was doing this? No, it was just a lot being put on me because I was already there. At least that's what I'd like to think, right? So,
yeah, I mean, you I think, yeah, you established yourself as a volunteer,
hmm,
and you were like, yes, this is where my friends are. This is where I want to be. I want to make sure
yeah,
this happens. And you're like, there was a need, and you're like, I'll step up, and then sometimes life comes at you, and
Yeah.
then you're like,
Now
oh,
I
okay, I
do
gotta
think it
reprioritize.
helped that I was black. I think people were like, hell yeah, let Jalen do it because I was black, like absolutely. But I don't think they were like, because I'm black, let's get Jalen to do said things. It was, I'd already been traveling in the national scene. So everyone was already asking me, like, hey, would you learn over this at this thing? And if, I felt like if anyone would have been doing that, they would have been asking them those type of questions if they had come with the same frequency that I did. So,
That's a great point, because once people, like, when somebody starts doing the national travel,
yep,
that does make a difference in bringing back the knowledge. Yeah, for sure.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see where I want to go here.
Hmm.
So something that Damon and Gray have talked about for sure, was like code switching.
Hmm.
Um, and now we've just talked about how, okay, these are dances are happening at ballrooms and Masonic shit,
Yep.
maybe not, they're not run by Masons, but it's run
Yep.
by non-black people.
Hmm.
Um, but they're talking about how, like, blues itself, you should be essentially code switching into it, because it is an all-white dance. So don't bring, as when I did interview Damien, he's like, don't bring your race into it. Come in as an open-minded student. Like, I am
Yep.
here to learn.
Yep.
So, I'll read the question the way it's written, but
Okay.
so it's that, should non-black dancers learn black cultural values in a respectful, appreciative way, like avoiding blackface,
Yeah.
such as using verbal encouragement towards others, with the goal to effectively code switch out of white cultural norms into black cultural norms as part of participating in the blues?
So I have a couple of answers to this. I think the first answer, which is my logical answer, which is yes and no, which I'm sorry, that's not a great answer. But like I say yes because we would love for them to make sure that they're up to date on the stuff that's going on before they come up in the class, and maybe try to change things or whatever they may do. But the other part of that is I don't know that it's fair to just ask them to do work to come to a dance class. Like that's the other side that I see as well. um I want people, when they come into the class, similar to Damon, to come in and leave the race behind. Just come in as a student. Hey, I'm here to learn about this, and we can give you values. I'm not the one to give the black history on blues dancing because I don't know all the history on blues dancing. And I don't expect you guys to know all the history on blues dancing. I just need you to know the why. This is why we do the thing this way. This is how we've been doing it. We're not changing that part of it, right? Close embrace is part of the dance. This is not some sexual thing that's happening here. It can be between two consenting adults. And it looks like that when that happens, but that's not how it operates in our dance. And like that's the type of stuff that, the over sexualization of the scene has been a big topic, especially when I was coming into it. And I know that's a big reason of why a lot of Lindy hoppers may be scared of blues dancing and whatnot. And you're just like, first of all, black people do all these things because we're humans, just like you guys are humans. Yeah, sometimes you get horny and you want to dance with your loved one. Sometimes it happens to blues music. Sorry, or yeah, like
Sorry,
that's
not
yeah,
sorry.
exactly, exactly. But I'll speak to my own personal experience with code switching in the dance scene as well. I code switch all the time. It's so normalized to do that in life as a black male, I would say, or just a black person in general. It doesn't matter, male or female. If you work in an industry that is predominantly white, I work in the tech industry. Okay. If I came in there saying all types of, if I talk the way that I normally talk in there, I would be fired. I don't think they would find that acceptable in whatever way. So of course you just gotta, I guess, tone back the fucking blackness is what I'll say on that, because that's essentially what you have to do to survive in that area. And that doesn't mean you can't be yourself. You can still be yourself in ways, but like it's just so normal. It's normal just to keep the peace. Why even bother at this point? I know how it goes down. You know, we make it happen and just fuck it. This is it.
Have
Hmm.
you felt like you've had to tone yourself down at blues dances?
Mm. I don't get too hyped up at the dances like that to where I felt like I need to tone myself down. Um, and then if I do, it's usually in a space where I can get hyped up, like a competition or something like, that's usually where it would be like, okay, the adrenaline's pumping, all the stuff is moving. That's when I'll feel the urge to just, let it out if you got to. But I can't say that I've really felt, I don't know. That's tough. Yeah, yeah. I definitely have. Now that I think about it, I have. I definitely have. Because even when when you're starting as a brand new blues dancer, right? Like, I don't know anyone, so I'm being ultra respectful to everybody, trying not to step on any toes to figure stuff out. And part of that is my personality, but also some of it is code switching too. Like, I felt a lot more comfortable interacting with the other black folks in the scene than I did anyone else. And that's just because, human nature. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna give you your flowers.
Hmm.
Uh, I I love that you do the like see you or like okay, like get it, and I love that. And I once you know I we started overlapping in dances
Hmm.
and I'm like, oh, okay, okay. And then I, continued to go to the national scenes. Then
Hmm.
I was noticing it more, from other black dancers. And I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah, this like why don't we have more of this? And so I really, I didn't force it, but like I use it as inspiration. Like, yeah, like let's shout out, like let's like, encourage people and give them that recognition as it's happening. Um
Yes,
and I wish we had more of it. And I think
I'm
that's
with you. I think, this is something that I was pushing when I was teaching, and actually made me really emotional the last time that I taught and told people this too, which is we're dancing for fun, guys. Let's have, like, let's have a good time out there. I think we're all forgetting the point of why we're doing this is to have a damn good time. And that means there can be excitement, and that means that you can be excited and shout out whatever your partner is doing if you think it's cool or unique or something that you're like, holy crap, that's fucking, I love it, you know and it doesn't hurt to put a smile on someone's face either. Like,
yes.
when people are happy, they're more encouraged to dance and be free. Like, that's, come on. To me, that's common sense, but I guess to a lot of people, it's not. And you can see that in competitions too. Like, when you're at competitions and whatnot, you can tell that a lot of the people don't really know how to interact when they're just watching the comp, and it's kind of quiet. And you're like, why the hell is a comp ever quiet? Have you ever seen a dance battle be quiet? Absolutely not, because everyone's cheering and screaming and loud and got their heads going crazy. Like, go watch some of these other things from art. That's just not how we get down with our people. When we go watch Soul Train, there's plenty of examples. You got to pick your people up.
I love that. I'm like, I'm gonna because we're trying to do more like cultural, awareness or like I can't think of the exact term, but like for
Hmm.
blues in LA, we're like, okay, what can we like share to be
Hmm.
like, hey, check this out. So I'm like, right, Soul Train, like
Yeah,
Soul
Soul
Train is
Train
so
is the old school one. They got everybody up in there dancing down the line. Like, that's the type of stuff. That's the vibe that we be on. You want to create those moments. You want that stuff to happen organically on the floor. And I'll toot my own horn here that this did happen at Damon and Kelsey's event this past New Year's, on New Year's Day, where there were people and they made a whole dance circle while I was DJing. And I thought that was so cool. And it lasted for about 1.5 songs. So I did pretty good because usually it's only about one song, but they made it to the next one. So I was like, we're doing all right with the DJ stuff. It was good. I really enjoyed that.
that's
Hmm.
awesome. I wish I was there. But yeah, like to get it to go beyond a song, yeah, like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not forced. That's natural. Like,
It was fantastic. That was the cookout. The cookout was the name of that event. That was fantastic. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, when I was talking to some of the other people that
Hmm.
you're my ninth one. Erica Brown, she brought up like politeness. She's like, I think
Mm,
a lot of people think that actually it would be impolite. Like they're trying to be like in their own sense of scope of culture.
yeah.
It's very impolite to like just
Yep.
kind of speak out of
It
nowhere.
is.
So it's
It
a
is. I
that's a
see what
huge
they're saying.
twist.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
for us. Not for us. Go on and, put them thoughts and feelings out there.
Yeah. So that's something I'm like hoping, can encourage some more of that to, continue to grow in the scene. Um, Competition for sure, but also even
Yeah.
outside of competition. Yeah. I have this question here.
Hmm.
About nostalgia. A lot of other dancers have come to like non-black dancers typically
Hmm.
come to these like older dances out of like,
Hmm.
oh, in the good old days, I want to relive,
Hmm.
this golden era. Um, so this is the kind of the way I'm using nostalgia is like, does nostalgia have any impact on why you do or do not participate in blues?
Mm. Does nostalgia have impact on why I do or do not participate in blues? I can't say that it does. Um, I can see the first point of a lot of white dancers gravitate towards early 1900s music and, dancing out of that nostalgia of the good old days. I think for me, that's less blues and more Lindy Hop. I think that's way more profound in Lindy Hop than it is in blues. But in Lindy Hop, absolutely. And I think that's a huge fucking problem.
Right.
And I don't know if there's a way to really solve it because that's just how it is. I mean, there was a whole thing with Camp Hollywood and one of the showcases that just happened, a couple of weeks ago. Mind you, I also taught at Camp Hollywood this year. And that was kind of crazy. Yeah, I had not taught. And yeah, I taught with Jamaica. She had reached out to me about teaching a class there. And that was probably the biggest class I've ever taught. I think there was over 100 people in that class. I was really surprised because we had the main dance room for the class. I thought we were
What
going to
was
be in like a side room or something like that. It was a blues basic class. My only gripe was the class was on Sunday afternoon after the blues night was on Saturday night. So that didn't really make sense because we taught like a beginner friendly lesson. Um, and that's also my first time seeing Jamaica in person, maybe 5 years. So to teach a class with someone on such short notice like that and for it to go and be as well received as it was, I'm glad I did it. And we had a fantastic time. Hopefully they'll bring us back for another one. But yeah, I just wanted to give you that info because
Yeah, I didn't know, like I'm like, what? You did
yeah,
what?
yeah.
Like,
I taught I
and that's
taught a class.
weird timing that they did it after. Like
Yep.
and I'm glad it was well attended because I'm like, I didn't even know.
Yeah, it
And I
was crazy. A lot of the people from the previous class ended up staying, and then even more people came and joined in. Like we had that whole floor, and it was packed.
I'm glad they gave you the big room then.
Yeah,
Like,
I was very surprised. I thought for sure we were gonna be like in the room off to the side, all the way at the end. I was like, oh, we are in the main room. I even used the mic for the first time. I never even used the mic before. Usually I'm like, team no mic. I put it on, made it happen. Yeah.
nice. That's really cool. That's cool to
Hmm.
hear.
Hmm.
All right. Any other you touched on it, but just in case you wanted to expand, any other
Hmm.
thoughts on like this like hypersexualization, sensuality versus, sexual,
Ooh.
you kind of touch on it, but maybe you have more, I don't know.
Yeah, I have touched on it a bit. I feel like this definitely happens in regards to the hypersexualization of Black individuals in dance scenes. I can't say that it happened directly with me. I think for other dancers, I've seen it. Like you see things and then you hear things maybe after the fact and whatnot, and that is a thing. The other thing you got to keep in mind is with a lot of these dance scenes is everyone here is a grown adult for the most part, right? Some people have younger folks that dance, but everyone is of age, legal consenting adults when it comes to that stuff. And I try not to get in their business around what's going on there. Um, no one wants to be fetishized in that way without their consent. and it's definitely, like I said, it's definitely something that happens, not directly to me, but I have seen it just being around in the scene.
Yeah, and I guess this might be one where it's like, I know you did do some Lindy Hop, and we just mentioned
Mm-hmm.
Lindy Hop with the nostalgia. Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel like um and yeah, I think you kind of mentioned that blues gets this back like this like
Yeah,
projected
it
thing.
does.
So I don't
It
like
does because of the close touching, and they just assume that because you're close touching, this is a super sexual dance. And I know people who are like, I don't want to do blues because they get too close and things like that. I'm like, what? Like, this is one of the best dances around. And but I'm not going to try and convince that person. They have their own way and or a reason why they feel that way. If they don't want to be touched there, then maybe blues isn't the dance for them. Like that's the way to think about it too.
yeah, and that's something like in some of the blogs that Damon and Gray and others have written
Hmm.
and interviewing them, like maybe this isn't, I guess it's better to have that awareness than to try and as you because you mentioned it kind of earlier, like don't come
Yeah.
in here and try and
Yeah.
make us change.
Yeah.
You gotta
Absolutely.
respect. Um, okay, I'm gonna throw this one out here because I
Hmm.
think it'll be the last one. Totally cool if it's like whatever, but do you feel like Black American culture is matriarchal? And if so, do you feel like that shows up in the blue space at all, the blue spaces?
What do you mean?
So like matriarchal as in that women is a more equality,
Mm.
like women are valued, their
Hmm.
opinions matter, that uh you know I can't speak to like do
Yeah.
we have
No, no,
someone
no,
in
no, no.
our
I
that has
I
like
got the gist of your
like
question now. The answer is absolutely. Because that's to me, that's what the scene is built on. And I think when you dance with people in blues, follows don't give enough for leads. And that was one of the exercises we did when I went to Austin Blues Party back in like 2019, I think it was, which was the whole exercise was getting the follows to give just as much as the leads are. And that made the dance really flow. But it also meant leads have to listen. It's a 50-50 dance. Yeah, I'm leading movement and direction and maybe like velocity, how fast we're going, but everything else is a conversation. And I don't think that that's the case in a lot of these other dances. A lot of the other dances, like I put this up, you do that. And in blues, it's like, I put this up, you do what you want. You know, I hope you do this because that would be nice. That's what I'm hoping you would, but you don't have to.
yeah. So yeah, that's something I feel like, especially contrasting it specifically with Lindy Hop,
Mm-hmm.
of like Lindy Hop is very, I would say, like dictative.
Mm-hmm.
I've described, I feel like I'm like a puppet, like I'm like
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of people come into blues both roles and
Mm-hmm.
don't realize like the difference and what a lead brings and what, like that
Yep.
leads and follows are there's not a hierarchy here.
Yep. Exactly.
And that you can have a more you're influencing each other equally. You're
Mm-hmm.
collaborating. So yeah. I think it's pretty much it then. A lot of the other stuff was more just kind of establishing
Gotcha.
I guess the only last thing I could ask, and it may be too broad of a question, is like, do you feel like you've seen appropriation as opposed to appreciation in the blues scene?
Hmm. I can't say that I have in the blues scene, but I can say that I have in the fusion scene. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about this for this, but
I mean, I do have
yeah,
fusion on here, like comparing, like how do
gotcha.
the contrast, compare contrast blues to another thing. Fusion is an
Yeah,
option. So if you want to talk a little bit, we can.
sure. Well, what I've seen in the fusion scene, I mean, the big thing for me, right, was I was taking that step back from blues, but I still really enjoyed the music aspect of it and was having fun with that. Because I started DJing so much, I was like, okay, I was just having fun playing music for folks, and it feels good knowing people like your music taste. That's just a good thing to feel. And I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens. And I wanted to play more non-blues music, and I didn't always find that blues was the right setting to do that. I wanted to respect, where we were at and play an appropriate amount and play some other things, of course, but like I wanted to play majority non-blues music, not just some non-blues music. And that led to me going towards the fusion scene, and interacting with that. And in the fusion scene, it's kind of like a shell shock when you first get there. It is also predominantly white, but pretty accepting from what I've seen and who the people that I've interacted with. Very open, very gay, very like accepting of who you are and come as you are type of vibe, and I'm with that. But when it comes to the actual dancing, there's a lot that needs to be discussed there. Uh, to me, the idea of fusion is taking one or two dance styles and fusing them into something else to then dance with another person who also knows one or two dance styles or more, right? And, creating a dance to the music off of that. I know that there's people who come to fusion dances who've never danced before at all. I think there's basic rules that get broke in fusion all the time in regards to like floor craft and taking care of your partner. And I think people are like, it's fusion, so I don't have to learn or do any of those things because I'm not taking a class in any specific dance thing. Um, Also, sometimes the music I just don't vibe with. It can get very ethereal, very like, this isn't doing anything for my soul. And this is not just a problem in fusion, but also what would happen in blues early on is I would hear a lot of, well, some blues stuff. I would hear covers for a lot of stuff. Not everything needs to be a cover of a black song. It can just be the black song. That's a crazy thought. Yeah. So,
Whoa.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but I found myself still enjoying the fact that I could DJ music outside of the majority of blues, and get people to dance. And I started to travel for that as well, just being a DJ. And that kind of sparked my like, oh man, I don't have to just interact with the scene by just being a scene leader, teacher, and organizer. I can even get back to it from this perspective as well. And then there's also just going to just dance. I choose to DJ because I want to play more music that I would like to hear. But the reality is I've grown out of the ability to really dance through my sets. I used to be able, like when I first started, I kind of had a playlist of the things that I was going to play, kind of set it, boom, go from there. At this point, I'm doing a lot more like live selecting music. Even if I already have a playlist, I'm like, well, okay, well, what do I think should come next? Reading the floor, um, and going from there. But that also means that I'm not dancing to my sets as much, which it's like a catch 22 because I really like doing it, but at the same time, I like dancing to the music that I'm playing too. So yeah.
Yeah, so the tricky part of being a, like, true DJ of, like,
Hmm.
I'm bringing my flavor, but then will I be able to dance,
Yep.
as I'm trying to keep the room going. Yeah.
Exactly.
Alright, that's it then.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was really
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.